Hey everybody, this is Mike Barden, and today we're going to talk about how to make your improvised solos better. So today we're going to be talking about that moment where you're expected to improvise a solo, usually in front of an audience. You have a statement to make. You need to show what you can do. There's so much going on psychologically, emotionally, and sometimes it's awesome, sometimes it's magical, sometimes it's a train wreck. But either way, it's a lifelong pursuit, this whole thing of improvising, playing, creating music out of the air. We all want to get better at it, those of us who are in that field. Today's going to be an overview, and I'm going to call it a self-assessment. By the end of this video, you will have your own idea of one area to address, at least one. And then in those future sessions, we'll get to each one of these things in more detail. And by the way, if anything else comes to mind, or if I missed something, or if you want me to elaborate on something I skimmed over today, please make a note in the comments. Today I have 5 topics for us to take a look at, and I've layered them from the bottom up, the bottom being the most practical, maybe the most basic, working our way all the way up to the most abstract of all of them, but they're all important. The first thing is technique. So when I say technique, I really just mean the physical ability to control the instrument in such a way that you can produce the tones that you want to produce. Not really saying that you have to become this virtuoso or you have to be just masterful in technique at a high level. That's really not the point. You can, of course, it's not a bad thing to aspire to. But really what I mean by technique is you have to be good enough. You need to have enough technique in there so that you can get the things out that you want to get. So it does include scales, and that does include exercises and all kinds of different things like that. But in regards to technique, you want to be good enough for the context in which you're going to be improvising. The next level up is musicianship, and by that I really just mean basic musicianship. So that means playing in time with the music. Seems really basic, but often gets missed. Playing scales and chords and licks and things that fit the music as it's going on. just need to know what's going on with the music on a theoretical level, chord-wise, so that the notes that you pick fit. Style, very simply put, play in the style of the music that is going on when you're supposed to be improvising. Okay, that seems, again, obvious enough, but it doesn't always happen. Play in the right style. Okay, balance. Now we've kind of got our foundations covered, and balance is a little bit more abstract. Maybe you know all that other stuff that I just went through, and you're like, okay, yeah, been there, done that. I want you to think about this next aspect, which is balance. And what I mean by balance, I'm talking about balancing two aspects. One is a level of safety and security against a level of risk and unpredictability. So these are two opposite ends of the seesaw there. And you want to have both. Because if you get too secure, this is honestly where a lot of players get stale sounding, and even to themselves, they're like, oh God, I've played the same stuff for 40 years. It's because they're playing stuff that's safe to them, it's secure. And it might be great, but the stuff they're playing is not new. There's nothing new about it. It's good, but there's nothing really special. So that would be on the extreme end of security or safety. The opposite end of that is risk. And what I mean by that is, in front of people, live, on stage, you're doing things you've maybe never done before. And that's risk. And risk is risk. You run the risk of falling on your ass and being embarrassed. You also have a possibility that it could be something just absolutely like you've never experienced before, and it could be the most amazing musical moment, and you'll cherish that forever. So, security and risk. I personally subscribe to an 80-20 rule with security and risk. I think it's good to play at about 80% material that you're comfortable with, and about 20% of it's stuff that you've never played before. So it kind of keeps you stable, because the thing about stability and security is that it gives you confidence. And it's important to be confident when you're playing, and you can be confident when you play stuff that you know. So some kind of balance. I want you to consider balancing your improvisation between those two areas of security and risk. And finally, number 5 is story. What kind of story are you telling? That's a great question to ask. What's your intention? What's the story that you want to tell in those few bars? You might want to think of this as the beginning and middle and end of a story. Real briefly, a beginning. How are you going to begin? I personally like the idea of beginning with something that's secure. Starting something simple, something that you feel confident with. And then developing that and maybe bringing that to something that's a little bit more risky. But then finding a way to bring it to a conclusion. So that's it. That's it for today. Technique, basic musicianship, style, balancing security and risk, and telling a story. There's so much more to say. We'll get into that next time. Thanks for listening.